How close the world came to losing one of its greatest treasures of literature. From a single charred manuscript atop a pile of ashes, one of the most important English myths was saved. A story of courage and valor in the face of absolute evil. Tonight we present to you Seamus Heaney's legendary translation of Beowulf. Welcome back to Doing Stuff Studios. So the Spear Danes in days gone by, and the kings who ruled them had courage and greatness. We have heard of those princes' heroic campaigns. There was Shield Sheafson, scourge of many tribes, a wrecker of mead benches, rampaging among foes. This terror of the hall troops had come far. A foundling to start with, he would flourish later on as his powers waxed and the worth was proved. In the end, each clan on the outlying coasts beyond the whale roads had to yield to him and begin to pay tribute. That was one good king. Afterwards, a boy child was born to Shield, a cub in the yard, a comfort sent by God to that nation. He knew what they had told, the long times and troubles they'd come through without a leader, so the Lord of Life, the glorious Almighty, made this man renowned. Shield had fathered a famous son. Beo's name was known through the north, and a young prince must be prudent like that, giving freely while his father lives, so that afterwards, in age when fighting starts, steadfast companions will stand by him and hold the line. Behavior that's admired is the path to power among people everywhere. Shield was still thriving when his time came and he crossed over into the Lord's keeping. His warrior band did what he bade them when he laid down the law among the Danes. They shouldered him out to the sea's flood, the chief they revered who had long ruled them. A ring-harled prow rode in the harbor, ice-clad, outbound, a craft for a prince. They stretched their beloved lord in his boat, laid out by the mast, amidships, the great ring-giver. Far-fetched treasures were piled upon him, and precious gear. I have never before heard of a ship so well furbished with battle tackle, bladed weapons, and coats of mail. The massed treasure was loaded on top of him. It would travel far on out into the ocean's sway. They decked his body no less bountifully with offerings than those first ones did who cast him away when he was a child, and launched him out alone over the waves. And they set up a gold standard high above his head, and let him drift to the wind and tide, bewailing him, mourning their loss. No man can tell, no wise man in hall or weathered veteran knows for certain who salvaged that load. Then it fell to Beo to keep the forts. He was well regarded and ruled the Danes for a long time after his father took leave of his life on this earth. And then his heir, the great Halfdane, held sway for as long as he lived. The elder and warlord. He was 4 times a father, this fighter prince. One by one they entered the world. Heorot, Hrothgar, the good Halga, and a daughter, I have heard, who was O'Neill's queen, a balm in bed to the battle-scarred Swede. The fortunes of war favored Hrothgar. Friends and kinsmen flocked to his ranks. Young followers, a force that grew to be a mighty army. So his mind turned to hall building. He handed down orders for men to work on a great mead hall, meant to be a wonder of the world forever. It would be his throne room, and there he would dispense his God-given goods to the young and old, but not the common land or the people's lives. Far and wide through the world, I have heard, orders for work to adorn that wallstead were sent to many peoples. And soon it stood there, finished and ready, in full view, the Hall of Halls. Heorot was the name he had settled on it, whose utterance was law. Nor did he renege, but doled out rings and torques at the table. The hall towered its gables wide and high, and waiting, a barbarous burning. That doom abided, but in time it would come. The killer instinct unleashed among in-laws, the bloodlust rampant. Then a powerful demon, a prowler through the dark, nursed a hard grievance. It harrowed him to hear the din of the loud banquet every day in the hall, the heart being struck, the clear song of a skilled poet telling with mastery of man's beginnings how the Almighty had made the earth a gleaming plain girdled with waters. His splendor he set in the sun and the moon to be earth's lamplights, lanterns for men, and filled the broad lap of the world with branches and leaves, and quickened life in every other thing that moved. So times were pleasant for the people there, until finally one, a fiend out of hell, began to work his evil in the world. Grendel was the name of this grim demon haunting the marshes, marauding round the heath and desolate fens. He had dwelt for a long time in misery among the banished monsters, Cain's clan, whom the Creator had outlawed and condemned as outcasts. As for killing Abel, the Eternal Lord had exacted a price. Cain got no good from committing that murder, because the Almighty made him anathema. And out of that curse there sprang ogres and elves and evil phantoms, and the giants who strove with God time and again until he gave them their reward. So after nightfall, Grendel set out for the lofty house to see how the Danes were settling into their drink. And there he came upon them, a company of the best asleep from their feasting, insensible to pain and human sorrow. Suddenly, the god-cursed brute was creating havoc. Greedy and grim, he grabbed 30 men from their resting places and rushed to his lair, flushed up and inflamed from the raid, blundering back with the butchered corpses. Then, as dawn brightened and the day broke, Grendel's power of destruction were plain. Their wassail was over. They wept to heaven and mourned under mourning. Their mighty prince, the storied leader, sat stricken and helpless, humiliated by the loss of his guard, bewildered and stunned, staring aghast at the demon's trail, in deep distress. He was numb with grief, but got no respite. For one night later, the merciless Grendel struck again with more gruesome murders. Malignant by nature, he never showed remorse. It was easy then to meet with a man shifting himself to a safer distance, to bed in the bothies, for who could be blind to the evidence of his eyes, the obviousness of the hall watcher's hate? Whoever escaped kept a weather eye open and moved away. So Grendel ruled in defiance of right, one against all, until the greatest house in the world stood empty, a deserted wallstead, for 12 winters, seasons of woe. The Lord of the Shieldings suffered under a load of sorrow. And so, before long, the news was known over the world. Sad lays were sung about the beset king, the vicious raids and ravishes of Grendel, his long and unrelenting feud, nothing but war. He would never parley or make peace with any Dane, nor stop his death-dealing, nor pay the death price. No counselor could ever expect fair reparation from those rabid hands. All were endangered, young and old, were hunted down by the dark death shadow who lurked and swooped in the long nights on the misty moors. Nobody knows where these reavers from hell roam on their errands. So Grendel waged his lonely war, inflicting constant cruelties on the people, atrocious hurt. He took over Heorot, haunted the glittering hall after dark, but the throne itself, the treasure seat, he was kept from approaching. He was the Lord's outcast. These were hard times, heartbreaking for the Prince of the Shieldings. Powerful counselors, the highest in the land, would lend advice, plotting how best the bold defenders might resist and beat off sudden attacks. Sometimes, at pagan shrines, they vowed offerings and idols, swore oaths to that killer of souls might come to their aid and save the people. That was their way. Their heathenish hope, deep in their hearts, they remembered hell. The Almighty Judge, good deeds and bad, the Lord Almighty, head of the heavens and high King of the world, was unknown to them. Oh, cursed is he who in time of trouble has to thrust his soul into the fire's embrace, forfeiting help. He has nowhere to run. But blessed is he who after death can approach the Lord and find friendship in the Father's embrace. So that troubled time continued. Woe that never stopped, steady affliction for half-day in the sun, too hard an ordeal. There was panic after dark. People endured raids in the night, riven by the terror. When he had heard about Grendel, Higlac's Thane was on home ground. Over in Geatland, there was no one else like him alive. In his day, he was the mightiest man on earth, high-born and powerful. He ordered a boat that would ply the waves. He announced his plan, to sail the Swan's Road and search out that king, the famous prince who needed defenders. Nobody tried to keep him from going. No elder denied him, dear as he was to them. Instead, they inspected omens and spurred his ambition to go, whilst he moved about like the leader he was, enlisting men, the best he could find. With 14 others, the warriors boarded the boat with him as their captain, a canny pilot along the coast and currents. Time went by. The boat was on the water, in close under the cliffs. Men climbed eagerly up the gangplank. Sand churned in the surf. Warriors loaded a cargo of weapons, shining war gear in the vessel's hold, then heaved out, away with their will in the wood-wreathed ships, over the waves, with the wind behind her and foam at her neck. She flew like a bird until her curved prow had covered the distance, and on the following day, at the due hour, those seafarers sighted land. Sunlit cliffs, sheer crags, and looming headlands. The landfall they sought. It was the end of their voyage, and the Geats vaulted over the side, out onto the sand, and moored their ship. There was a clash of mail and the thresh of gear. They thanked God for that easy crossing on a calm sea. When the watchman on the wall, the Shieldings lookout, whose job it was to guard the sea cliffs, saw the shields glittering on the gangplank, the battle equipment being unloaded, he had to find out who and what the arrivals were. So he rode to the shore. The horseman of Hrothgar challenged them in formal terms, flourishing his spear. What kind of men are you who arrive rigged out for combat in coats of mail, sailing here over the sea lanes in your steep-hulled boat? I have been stationed as lookout on this coast for a long time. My job is to watch the waves for raiders, any danger to the Danish shore. Never before has a force under arms disembarked so openly, not bothering to ask if the sentries allowed them safe passage or the clan had consented. Nor have I seen a mightier man-at-arms on earth than the one standing here. Unless I am mistaken, he is truly noble. This is no mere hanger-on in a hero's armor. So now, before you fare inland as interlopers, I have to be informed about who you are and where you hail from. Outsiders from across the water, I say it again, the sooner you tell me where you come from and why, the better. The leader of the troop unlocked his word hoard. The distinguished one delivered this answer. We belong by birth to the Geat people, and owe allegiance to Lord Hygelac. In his day, my father was a famous man, a noble warrior lord named Ecthio. He outlasted many a long winter and went on his way. All over the world, men in wise counsel continue to remember him. We come in good faith to find your lord and nation's shield, the son of Halfdane. Give us the right advice and direction. We have arrived here on a great errand to the Lord of the Danes, and I believe, therefore, there should be nothing hidden or withheld between us. So tell us if what we have heard is true. About this threat, whatever it is, this danger abroad in the dark nights, this corpse maker, mongering death in the Shielding's country. I come to proffer my wholehearted help and counsel. I can show the wise Hrothgar a way to defeat his enemy and find respite, if any respite is to reach him ever. I can calm the turmoil and terror in his mind. Otherwise, he must endure woes and live with grief for as long as his hall stands at the horizon on its high ground. Undaunted, sitting aside his horse, the coast guard answered, anyone with gumption and a sharp mind will take the measure of two things, what's said and what's done. I believe what you have told me, that you are a troop loyal to our king. So come ahead with your arms and your gear, and I will guide you. What's more, I order my own comrades, on their word of honor, to watch your boat down there on the strand. Keep her safe in her fresh tar until the time comes for her curved prow to preen the waves and bear the hero back to Geatland. May one so valiant and venturesome come unharmed through the clash of battle. So they went on their way. The ship rode the water, broad-beamed, bound by its hawser and anchored fast. Boar shapes flashed above their cheek guards, the brightly forged work of goldsmiths watching over those stern-faced men. They marched in step, hurrying on till the timbered hall rose before them, radiant with gold. Nobody on earth knew of another building like it. Majesty lodged there. Its light shone over many lands, so their gallant escort guided them to that dazzling stronghold and indicated the shortest way to it. Then the noble warrior wheeled on his horse and spoke these words. It is time for me to go. May the Almighty Father keep you in his kindness and watch over your exploits. I'm away to the sea, back on alert against enemy raiders. That ends part one of our reading of Seamus Heaney's translation of Beowulf. Join us next time for part two, when we enter the Hall of Heorot. If you enjoy what I do here, please like and subscribe. Comment down below what story you would like to hear next, or which game you would like to see played. Thank you very much. This has been Doing Stuff Studios. Good night.